ladies and gentlemen. Hello, this is Deep over at Landscape Go, and this is now take 2 of my spoiler video for September 9th. Now, Throne of Eldraine is just around the corner, and we've got some pretty amazing things. Now, this is September 9th was officially day 1 of spoiler season. We did have some past spoilers in the week prior. Feel free to check out Jeremy's list, where he breaks down. Jeremy's video where he breaks down all of the cards basically and gives his opinion about them. So I will be doing the same for some of the actually most of the new additions for September 9. With one exception, we will be adding in one Planeswalker deck card. I think that could actually make an impact in Standard if built around. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. We're going to be starting out with Oko the Trickster, 4 green and blue for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. It has a +1, put 2 +1/+1 counters and up to 1 target creature you control, 0 until end of turn. Oko becomes a copy of target creature you control, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt, or prevent all damage that would be dealt to it this turn. And then -7 until end of turn. Each creature you control has a base power and toughness 10/10 until gains trample. So this is probably the only Planeswalker that I could see maybe making a splash in Standard. I think it's a fairly decent card. It is 6 mana, which is a strong caveat. However, we will be seeing a proliferation style list becoming more and more important once rotation happens, and I think Oko could be a top end finisher for that. Not to mention, he himself can become a copy of a creature that we control, and then he can also keep buffing our creatures, giving us activations with +1/+1 counter synergies, not to mention making our things larger. And then after 3 turns we can ultimate him and then win the game by giving all of our creatures 10/10 basically, in addition to whatever +1/+1 counters are on them. I think he could make us a splash, and I'd be interested to see if anyone can make him work. Now for today's spoilers, we have Mystical Dispute, 2 and a blue for an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell, and then counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So this is basically a bad mana leak with upside against blue. I could see this being in a strong sideboard contender for decks that splash blue, and I could see it being a 2 to 3 of in the main board for blue whites or blue X control, and especially since you could have turn 1 island. Your opponent then thought erasures on turn 2. You can then cast this for your 1 island, countering the spell. I think that's going to be fairly impactful. I do think that this card is decent. It's not the best card ever, but I think it will make an impact in Standard. Once Upon a Time, 1 and a green, instant. This card is amazing. It is incredibly powerful. It's probably even more powerful the further back you go, including Modern, Legacy, Vintage, etc. However, in Standard, I think it can also be very good as well, considering you can cast this on turn 0 for free. It says if this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. And then you basically get sort of like a Commune with Dinosaurs or Ancient Stirrings or something like that, where you get to look at the top 5 of your library and you can put a creature or land from among them and put them into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So the reason why this is kind of like Ancient Stirrings and why Tron may actually want to play this is that it can hit your creature finishers or your lands, and in Modern being able to cast this for free, allowing you to then tutor up another Tron land. You could play a Tron land, cast this, get a Tron land, and then play something like a Chromatic Sphere or something like that to keep digging forward. I think is extremely powerful. They probably would want to play more than 2, just because Ancient Stirrings is so powerful, but I can definitely see this making a splash in Modern, and I can definitely see it being a good a way to find combo pieces in Standard. I definitely like this card a lot. Wicked Guardian 3 and a black 4/4/2 Human Noble. When it enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. Now, if you have a huge toughness creature, this enters the battlefield, you deal 2 damage to it, you get a free draw card, not too bad. And, you know, really, this is going to be a sealed, maybe a limited playable, kind of like a filler in case you are running out of space. But hey, you know, it's not too bad. It's a 4/2 for 4. I've seen worse. And, you know, it's not pack 1, pick 1, anything like that. But if you're starting needing to fill out your 4-drop slot, it's a consideration. Ferry Guide Mother. For basically, it's a flying man. It's a 1/1 flying for 1, but it does have a sorcery adventure. For 1 and a white, you have Gift of the Fae. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. So in a blue-white flyers list, this could be really good. You play a flyer on turn 1, turn 2 you cast this, which then leaves you on. Turn 2 you cast Gift of the Fae, and then which then exiles the creature, which then allows you to cast this creature from exile. So turn 3 you can play this plus something else, like maybe the spell that gives you a draw 2 if you have creatures with flying, something like that. I think could be really good. Enchanted Carriage, 5 colorless for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, it creates 2 1/1 white mouse creature tokens. First time we've seen mice. We've seen a lot of rats and haven't seen a lot of mice. And it has a crew of 2. So what I like about this in limited is that it is a 4/4 for 5. It can fit in any deck. Plus, it comes with 2 creatures that can automatically crew it. I definitely think that's really powerful. Will it see standard play? Probably not, but maybe sealed, maybe draft. Turn into a pumpkin, 3 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Adamant, if you cast this with 3 blue mana inside its mana cost, create a food token. So I think food's going to be very powerful. However, I don't think this card is going to see really any play in Standard. I think it's a little slow for what it does. It's 4 mana. All it does is it bounces a non-land permanent to an opponent's hand and you draw a card. I guess you could target one of your own things if you need to reset something. That is a possibility if you need to save something, plus create a food token. But I think that we're going to have higher impact 4-drops that we could be playing. That'll just feel better for us in that food synergy list. And you know, this is still the first day of spoilers. I'm sure we're going to see multiples of food generators in the format, so we'll have to just wait and see what comes out to really see if this is going to see any standard play. Really, right now it looks more like a limited card. Return to Nature, 1 and a green, choose 1, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. It's an instant speed spell. This is a great reprint. I'm glad it's still in Standard. It is an awesome upgrade from some of the past spells that we've had of a similar nature. Having that exile target card from a graveyard is extremely good in green, and it's something that green didn't really have before. So I'm glad that it's here, and yeah, it's a good sideboard card. Wildwood Tracker, for a single green, we have a 1/1 elf warrior, and when the tracker attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So basically, this is going to be actually pretty decent in a cool aggro list, or an aggro list that is going to be running green. Maybe you're going to be playing something like this on turn 1, and then Pelt Collector on turn 2. It pumps the Wildwood Tracker. You swing with the tracker dies, it pumps the Peltwood Collector. There's the Pelt Collector, excuse me. There's a couple different synergies you can have with it. Basically, having a 2/2 for 1 on turn 1 is exactly what an aggro list is going to be wanting, and I think that this is going to fit really well for us. Murderous Rider, 1 black for a zombie knight. We have both knight and zombie synergy here. It has lifelink, and then when it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, and it's a 2/3. But it does have an adventure mode here. For swift end, 1 black instant speed, destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 2 life. This is basically Hero's Downfall on a creature, which is fantastic. So you can cast this, kill a creature or a planeswalker. Sure, you lose a couple life, no big deal. You exile the card. You can then cast the creature side from exile. It has lifelink. You gain back the 2 life. If it dies, it goes to the bottom of your library and lets you do it all over again. This card is fantastic. I'm surprised. Like this is some really good power creep, and I'm just flabbergasted. If we're able to shuffle our library or find ways of tutoring up the Murderous Rider, there's just some phenomenal things that we can be doing with this card in black. I definitely like it a lot. Brimstone Trebuchet, 2 in a red for a 1/3 artifact creature wall, defender and reach, and you can tap it to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever a knight enters the battlefield, you can untap it. Maybe sealed playable, not really draft playable. Knights are going to be wanting to be more aggro than stalling out the board, so I don't really see this having a lot of play in standard, and really not really much anywhere else. Burning Guard Trainer for 4 and a red for a 3/3 human knight, trample haste. When it enters the battlefield, another target knight you control gets +2/+2, gains trample and haste until end of turn. So this is a decent pick for draft or sealed. Fits really well in a knight synergistic style of deck. That +2/+2 gains trample and haste until end of turn is really good. Basically gives you 5 power and toughness spread across 2 bodies. That also has haste and trample, so that's pretty phenomenal. I think this is going to be decent for draft and sealed. Not really standard playable though. Joust, 1 in a red for a sorcery. Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. The creature you do control gets +2/+1 until end of turn if it's a knight, and then they fight. So red only has about like 10 cards that has ever had the fight mechanic on it. So this is still a relatively new thing for the color. And so it's really sweet to see it in here. It's usually that ability is relegated to green, but here for red we get it, and it's in a knight's deck, right? We want to be playing in a knight's deck, so we're maybe looking at Mardu Knights. It gives a knight +2/+1 until end of turn. It could also just be a Hail Mary for us to win the game as well. So I think it's pretty interesting, and I'd be curious to see if any of it's going to get played in that knight's list. Jousting Dummy for 2 colorless. We have an artifact creature Scarecrow Knight. It's you can pay 3 and then give it +1/+0 until end of turn, and it's a 2/1. Limited fodder. I mean, it's not great. It's a decent curve filler if you really need it. Not really standard playable or anything like that. Ranger of Caravelhandia, I think that's how you say it. Ranger of Caravelhandia. It's got basically 4 hybrid green-white mana. You can also pay 4 hybrid green-white mana for the adventure mode, which is create 2 white, 1/1 human tokens, and then you can tap the creature portion of it to give creatures you control +1/+1 until end of turn. I think it's actually really neat. It's an elf, so it could fit really well inside of it was like an elf cavalier, actually, kind of interesting. So we can actually use this inside of an elf strategy, like an elf ball list. You can play it in mono green, you can play it in green white elves, and just having the ability to pump your team is really, really powerful. I can definitely get behind this card. I think it's an interesting uncommon for sure. Doom Foretold, 2 white and a black enchantment at the beginning of each player's upkeep, so this does hit you as well. That player sacrifices a non-land, non-token permanent. If that player can't, they discard a card, they lose 2 life, you draw a card and gain 2 life, and then you create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. Then you sacrifice Doom Foretold. So if you hit yourself with it and you don't have anything to be able to sacrifice, sure, you discard a card, you lose 2 life, but you then get to basically recoup that by drawing a card and gaining 2 life, and then you get a free 2/2. So that's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, play this with something like Dread Horde Invasion, and you just have a free sacrifice fodder every single turn. Your opponent is slowly getting whittled away, and then eventually you get to sacrifice your Doom Foretold and draw a card, gain a couple of life back. and then also get a free 2/2. So I can get behind this. It'll be really interesting in like a Starfield Mystic style list, and we'll see if we can make it work. This next card is absolutely insane. The power creep on this is so real. This is going to be a very push card. It's going to be anywhere from like $30 to $50. This card is, I'm just impressed that they actually had the gall to print something like this. It's pretty insane. It's Questing Beast, 2 green for a 4/4 legendary creature beast. Finally, we have a nice legendary beast that we can have for that in Commander. However, this 4/4 for 4 also has Vigilance, Death Touch, and Haste. In addition to that, we also have the ability that it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. But in addition to that, combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. And then on top of that, whenever it deals damage to an opponent, combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls. So it's just a straight heat bear. Now obviously there's not an into the battlefield ability here, so your opponent, you know, having instant speed removal can like negate its effect, but the fact that it has haste, vigilance, and death touch is insane. And then the fact that it says combat damage can't be prevented, the thing about protection spells is that is preventing combat damage, so it basically stops protection. I mean, this is just insane value for 4 mana. It's going to easily, I mean, imagine playing this on turn 3, swinging in. I mean, this is just insane. I can't even. I am so surprised they print this. They are going to print this. It's going to be your Chase Mythic. It's going to be expensive. If you can find it cheap early on, get it. Everyone's going to be wanting to play that thing. Wishclaw Talisman. For 1 black, it's an artifact. It enters with 3 wish counters on it. You can pay 1 and tap and remove a wish counter from it. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle your library, and then an opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. You can only activate this on your turn. Now, there's a couple of things we can do to break this card. One of the things you can do is animate it by that 1 card that would put 4 +1/+1 counters on it, and then becomes an artifact creature. So basically you can activate the ability and then play something like Tristani, and then Tristani would then put it back under your control after your opponent you had given it to your opponent after you had used it, and then they can't actually activate it until their turn. And since it all comes back to your your side of the battlefield, they won't actually get a chance to use it. Really cool there. You can also use something like I can't think of what it's called right now. It's the Manifold Key. For 1 mana, you can untap target artifact you control. So here you pay 1, you tap, remove a wish counter with that on the stack to tutor. You then untap it with the Manifold Key, and then you can then tap it in response again to the trigger. And if you have another Manifold Key, you can do it again and basically get 3 tutors, and then your opponent has nothing. So I like that a lot. Ember Cleave. For 4 red, we have legendary artifact equipment. For flash, it has this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control, and then when it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control, and then it gets the equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. So it's basically best case scenario team or battle rage that stays around. I definitely like it a lot. Now, this kind of feels a little bit like a win more card. If you're swinging in with 4 creatures, you're probably winning enough. But even if you're only swinging in with maybe 2 creatures, having this ability for 4 mana is still pretty good, even though it's not 2 mana. Now, you're probably not going to be wanting to play this in something like a tokens list, where you're going white tokens. Instead, you'd rather maybe be playing this in like a Gruul list, something obviously with red aggro in it. I doubt you'd be playing this in like big red or anything like that. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see where this goes. I'm not entirely sure just yet, but it's nice to see some decent equipment getting printed for sure. Wicked Wolf, 2 green for a 3/3 wolf. People are not up on this card. They think it's weak. There's people are kind of trying to shoehorn in wolf synergies here to try to make like a wolf tribal deck. This is not that card. Okay, you do not. I mean, sure, you're going to jam this into a wolf tribal deck, but that's not the reason why you play this card. Let's go ahead and read the abilities and we can break it on down. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. And then sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on Wicked Wolf. It gains indestructible until end of turn, and then you tap it, and it's a 3/3 for 4. So the reason why you play this is, one, you have the fight ability on it, which is really great. But you play this in a Food Matters list, and it reminds me very much of Bristling Hydra. Now, Bristling Hydra, you paid 3 energy, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then it gained hexproof until end of turn. Now, this doesn't gain hexproof, but it does gain indestructible until end of turn. And sure, you tap it, so you're basically regenerating it, but you're adding a +1/+1 counter onto it. Now, we don't know the extent of how easy it is to create food. If it's really easy, I could see this definitely becoming another type of Bristling Hydra. You cast this, you fight something, you sacrifice a food token. It's easy to create. I don't know how easy again, but maybe let's say it's easy to create. And then all of a sudden you have a 4/4 indestructible that is fighting something when it enters the battlefield. Incredibly powerful. I think this card's going to be really good, especially if we have enough enablers of food. We'll see. Blow your house down. 2 in a red. Sorcery. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. I kind of think it should be 2 target creatures, considering that the nursery rhyme that it references, the 3 little pigs, the wolf wasn't actually able to blow down the 3rd house because it was made of brick. But yeah, it's fine. I think the title for this card could have been a little bit better. Blow your house down is a little on the nose. I think they should have just, come up with something else and let the audience figure out what nursery rhyme it's based around. I think it's just a little too on the nose. But, it's an okay limited card. It's not going to really see any standard play at all. Witch's Vengeance. 1 black. Speaking of things that we'll see play in standard, this is definitely going to be one of them. Sorcery. Creatures of the creature type of your choice gets -3/-3 until end of turn. So basically it is a one-sided Languish, except it's -3/-3 instead of -4/-4, and it costs 1 less mana. So there you go. So basically you build around this in the way that each of your creatures are different types, and they don't really have a huge synergy with one another other than their abilities. And so then you can play this, then you say, I don't know, like elves or fairies or wolves or whatever, and then it gives everything -3/-3 except for your stuff. So I think that's pretty good. I can definitely see this getting play in standard, maybe modern, but definitely standard for sure. Giant Killer. For 1 white, we have 1 and a white to tap target creature. Sorry, 1 and a white tap to tap target creature. It is a 1/2, and it has an instant mode adventure, which is chop down 2 and a white, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. This card is fantastic. Not only does it give you a creature that can tap down any creature as long as you have the mana available for it, but it also just allows you to destroy a creature right out and then cast the creature from exile. This card's really good. Definitely going to see play in any white X lists, and definitely see play in any sort of white aggro list as well. And then finally we have one last card, Emery, Lurker of the Loch. It is a legendary creature, and it has this spell cost 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of library into your graveyard, and then you can tap it. Choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. This card is absolutely fantastic. Great build around me card. I think blue-black artifacts is going to be a deck to really be a contender. It already had a whole lot of good pieces, and something like this is a great replacement for something like Sai. I am all about it. Imagine turn 1 you play an artifact along with a land, and then turn 2 you play another land, another 1 mana artifact, and you can cast this for 1 mana. Mill for 4, next turn, tap, find your combo piece that you're looking for. I think that this thing is going to be really good. I doubt it's going to be something like a $10 card or anything like that. Probably like a $5 card, but I definitely think there is some good synergy here with the type of list that you'd be wanting to run it with. Well, again, guys, my name is Debo over at lanesego.com. I appreciate you guys checking out the spoilers. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out Jeremy's. He went into some really good depth about the spoilers from all of last week. I appreciate you guys coming and checking it out. Again, Derek over at lanesego.com. Feel free to follow us on our social media as well. Twitter is at lanesego1, Facebook is lanesego or the sideboard. Twitch is we stream 5 nights a week. Twitch is twitch.tv/lanesego, and obviously here on YouTube, just go ahead and search for us, and feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let us know what cards from the set that has been revealed so far is your favorite down in the comments below. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that you think I have evaluated incorrectly? Let me know in those comments down below. Again, my name is Tebow over at lanesego.com. I appreciate you guys checking this out. We can't do this without you, and I'll talk to you soon.